Christ on a bike. Last month marks 10 years. Count 'em! Since I penned an article on my website warning you, the great tattooed, chip-scoffing and piss-ugly British public, about fancy lighting that was never made to accommodate the wiring hiding behind the wood chip of your stupid 70s semi-detached shitbox. A whole decade on, and nothing's changed, as certain lighting manufacturers still churn out what looks like tin tat, sporting a horrendous price tag, while simultaneously inducing a horrendous headache on behalf of us installers. With that in mind, if you happen to present me with a cardboard bastard that has DAR lighting stamped upon it, you perhaps ought to set your sphincter to stunned, as I'll be pulling your pants down and inserting my invoice somewhere sensitive as a hard copy rolled up into a paper tube. Why, you may well innocently ask, while staring wide-eyed and blinking into the furious expression etched upon my face. I'll tell you why, asshole, because in my opinion, you've already overpaid on what I would personally consider as DIY grade garbage, probably retailed from the likes of John Lewis, who really ought to know better if they're really the champion of the consumer as they constantly proclaim. And now my expertise to stick your procured pap where you want it won't come cheap. That's not my fucking fault, you understand. I don't want you thinking I'm some kind of super sexy swindler, what with my rugged manscaping and healthy thatch of tradesman off blonde hair, which in of itself ought to part the legs of any bored housewife. On the contrary, the manufacturer of your metallic and possibly plastically bejeweled shiny shite light, which would otherwise sit happily at home on the ceiling of any bad Birmingham Balti house, has knowingly made my task unnecessarily problematic. I'm all right. When it comes to lighting, it's not always a straightforward case of one off, one on, and just because the luminaire you forked out for had a fairly forking high RRP, which one would presume equates to thoughtfulness of design and quality of construction, instead you'll probably find the pound coins proffered fall far short of perfection when it comes to connectivity. So with the garish asshole now set in its box pretending to be proper classy and not at all the knickers and heels whore you assume the high price tag commanded, you maybe weren't expecting a significant bill from your electrical installer after he or she fought to get the fucking thing up onto the mimosa paintwork of your Artex ceiling. The issue is twofold, if you'll permit me to mansplain. Firstly, that new luminaire of yours is made of metal, probably steel, which as well as being cheap happens to also be electrically conductive, something you'll perhaps recall from your GCSE physics lessons if you were paying attention and not drawing penises all over the textbooks. Therefore, I'm obliged to ensure it remains safe post-installation so that you, the paying customer I clearly care so much about, at least until my invoice gets settled, won't meet a wholly unfulfilling and unsatisfying demise through electrocution whilst attending to the mundane chore of dusting off the cobwebs or changing a light bulb. And yet, manufacturers such as DAR, the pronunciation of whose name literally sounding retarded, DAR, although that pretentious umlaut probably means I'm supposed to pronounce it as dare, as in I dare you to try and fit one of their fucking products safely, because they somehow figure they don't want to go to the expense and convenience of providing the obvious way to make safe this metal work, which in the opinion of me and many another electromagician, would involve the attaching of a simple earth fly lead to what BS 7671 literally defines as an exposed conductive part, i.e. something which can be touched and which is not normally live, but which can become live under fault conditions. In most UK electrical installations, there will be an earth wire on the building wiring providing a nice low impedance path for any hazardous fault current to flow down, so that the fizzy sparky stuff doesn't make the metalwork inconveniently super deadly for you, the fat chav trying to bling up your inner city ex-council house. Yet instead of providing that simple low-cost earth fly lead to interface their exposed conductive parts with the safety conductor literally provided to help keep you alive in the event of a fault, the likes of DAR often fit their fittings with a small and shitty plastic enclosed 2-pole connector block while simultaneously slapping a Class 2 or double insulated label somewhere on the rear, which brings me swiftly on to issue number 2, which is that nobody, but absolutely fucking nobody, has a 2-core 0.75mm flex protruding from their ceiling or walls, which is all this type of connection enclosure is arguably fucking good for, because if correctly terminated with no core colours on show, that maintains your double insulation, although the IET would say such a cable as even that is not in itself double insulated, rather it is insulated and sheathed, which makes one wonder what the fuck any of us are supposed to do to get the shitty new lights working compliantly. In the best case of it's Friday afternoon and we're nearly down the pub for a Pims and Lemonade scenario, those of us stuck up the stepladder will find a single 1mm 6424Y aka twin and earth cable dangling down pathetically like a cock on the soft. A basic scenario this shithead solution demonstrably isn't designed to correctly accommodate, because forcing a 6240Y into such a crappy enclosure is tricky, there's no way for the circuit protective conductor to go, and the screw terminals don't ever seem to be designed for solid cores. Most often, however, we won't even be that lucky, and there'll be at least 3 cables spewing out from where our stupid new light is supposed to go, comprising of 1 to 1.5mm 6424 wide twin and earths for loop in, the same for loop out, and again for a switch position, seeing as all UK lighting wiring was traditionally junctioned at the ceiling rows. Only in recent years has the junction point shifted to the switch as a consequence of Regulation 559.5.1.208, introduced a decade ago in 17th edition Amendment 3, which asks for consideration for a neutral to be provided at the switch. That's more for smart switch compatibility, of course, but the natural effect of that has seen a reduction of wiring at the luminaire itself. Nonetheless, many modern house builders still today seemingly work to some even earlier version of 17th edition, citing bullshit about prior design, and excuse the likes of NIC, EIC somehow allow them to get away with, whereas if I were to try the same, my assessor would doubtless be wagging his finger in an annoyed manner and poking his red pen angrily up my bottom. In some installations, there may even be more than 3 cables. Typical situations include if there's a second lighting point, if a bathroom extractor has subsequently been added, or where smoke alarms later get daisy-chained off the lighting positions. The electrical world is a smorgasbord of variety, a fact the NIC, EIC don't seem to understand because they believe everything was installed only yesterday and ought to be wholly rewired if otherwise. But as Forrest Gump would say, had he been a Sparky instead of accepting the position of head designer at DAR, electrical installations are like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Well, most of the time, Forrest, you're going to get the horrible coffee one that tastes like desiccated cat shit, and not the sweet, soft-scented strawberry delight you had perhaps anticipated wrapping your tongue around like it was some prime pussy. In chocolate terms, the horrible coffee one translates to at least 3 different cables popping out of any given ceiling here in Blighty. Therefore, what is one supposed to do when the likes of DAR present us with just a epoxy 2-pole piece of shit recycled plastic milk bottle abomination complete with screw terminals seemingly made out of cheese that will drop out and disappear upon loosening or deform pathetically into the lightest of tightening, and with no accommodation to stow the circuit protective conductor that is also undoubtedly present. Indeed, DAR may argue that their crappy connector box happens to be handy because it offers compatibility with those older installations where no protective conductor is present, and so long as there are always 2 layers of insulation over live parts fully entering their sparkling semen white plastic enclosure, then safety is ensured and their metalwares can be installed on circuits where no earthing is available. Well, okay, wankers, but I would counter by pointing out that any property where only a line and neutral happen to be hanging out is very much the aged exception, and certainly not the rule most of us at the fucking fat end will ever come across. Oh sure, there's that odd property from 1965 that might have been wired in such a way, and if you look at the website for DAR, they boast about starting from a spare bedroom back in 1971, so maybe that was the first and only time they ever looked up at UK electrical lighting wiring, ignorantly assuming nothing ever changed since. Their website also reveals DAR brand as Laura Ashley, which explains this 2016 picture lurking in my Camera Rolls Road gallery showing a metallic Laura Ashley luminaire replete with Class-2 double insulation logo and a connector patently unsuitable for the wiring spouting out of this 16th century listed building that I can't exactly go twatting dirty great holes into. For those of us staring similarly gobsmacked at a connection enclosure so woefully inadequate for the fixed wiring we're looking at, it should surprise precisely nobody that often the manufacturer's noncy connectivity nonsense ends up slung into the skip, bounced into the bin or lobbed into landfill, and not just by the DIYs, race to the bottom checker trade wankers or the faceable electrical experts who are somehow always sat behind their keyboard ready to offer their 2 penn'orth no matter what time of the working day it happens to be. Whether using or losing any manufacturer's connection solution, bag of wank though one may believe it to be, and then wanging the wiring off with Wagos will defeat the bullshit Class 2 rating of the luminaire, as that now means we no longer have 2 layers of insulation between live parts and touch accessible metalwork once it's all assembled and mounted. Any red, black or brown blue cores that have been left exposed within the metal base of our luminaire risk making that metalwork live should connections work loose or basic insulation be damaged, and because said metalwork isn't earthed by deliberate and retarded design of the manufacturer, some unfortunate will later fucking know about it being live swiftly enough when they happen to touch it. And yet the DAR products I've unfortunately been presented with installing recently have had a new tactic whereby they've solved the problem by applying a sticker placed over the dumb as all fuck connection enclosure stating warranty is void should said enclosure be slung into the skip, bounced into the bin or lobbed into landfill. I assume that's because physical warranty returns have come back with the useless god-awful Lego toy that they provided for connection now absent, resulting in the pathetic wetting of some pants back at headquarters. And I get that, to a point. The manufacturer, DAR, provides an electrical connection solution which, if discarded, places the interfacing of their product to the fixed wiring outside of their control, so how can they either maintain warranty or guarantee safety? However, as already mentioned, their connection method is so obviously inadequate for what one will undoubtedly be faced with on any given British installation, it necessitates some quite complicated external rejigging if the wiring is to be prepared to meet manufacturer expectation, that expectation basically being the presentation of a 0.75mm flex and absolutely fuck all else entering the luminaire. That might just work if the installation can accommodate all that horrible and apparently unsuitable building wiring being fucked off externally to the fixture, but you're stuck with many a wall lighter where a decorative plaster rose or concrete ceiling are present, because how can one possibly make off and enclose connections in any way that satisfies both the requirements of the manufacturer and BS7671 when there's no way to physically locate it all? Which presents a proper poorly lubricated fuck-off middle finger toward we at the installation end. The manufacturers, after all, are only interested in sales, which means getting onto the shelves of John Lewis or B&Q and using their outward bling to attract the eye of the consumer, despite what lurks beneath. And one might forgive what lurks beneath if it wasn't for the fact brands such as this charge a high retail price for their wares while disrespecting we poor saps who have to install the fucking things with connection equipment that looks like it fell out of a B&M Bargains Christmas cracker. Once our keen-eyed shopper finds much later that they have to pony up more than they thought to get the fucking thing fitted in a way that is both safe and compliant is of course none of the manufacturer's concern. A situation I imagine the top brass at the likes of Dar even laugh off over champagne and hookers whenever they've banked your money. This all smacks of a manufacturer who never got tasked with installing their own goods out in the real world, because if they did, they'd have a Dar moment. And would rethink the design pretty fucking sharpish if their own labour and expenses were involved. It makes one wonder why any self-proclaimed artisan lighting manufacturer boasting of a homegrown design team, despite the ostentatious umlaut in their name, would be so daft as to not provide a connection solution suitable for the type of wiring found in next to nearly all UK homes, but also why such doubtless magicians of manufacturer are so keen on passing off metal luminaires as Class 2, whilst fully in the knowledge their products will either often never be successfully installed as such, posing risk to the paying customer who put both confidence and cash into their sodding product, or knowing the installer will have to go to significant additional effort and expense to maintain the Class 2 double insulation rating through reworking or wiring externally to their luminaire, which requires significant effort, notwithstanding it not always even being physically possible. External junctions require additional parts, labour, skill and probably the twatting of a larger hole in the ceiling to accommodate the likes of your average Connects box. And no, a chop block wrapped up in a ball of electrical tape is neither professional nor compliant, despite what you might see on fucking Facebook. For a start, it pisses off regulations 416.2.1, live parts should be inside enclosures, and 559.5.1, connection to the fixed wiring. The most svelte solution is probably a quick wire switch and load if you can find anywhere stocking the damn things, otherwise it isn't always easy to pare the building wiring down into something the lighting manufacturer likes, and it isn't often something the footprint of the stupid new luminaire will adequately obscure, even if you could. As with this dog shit from SLV, Germany's own version of Dar. Here making products without an umlaut, but with a base to their luminaire that has less length than Fat Sam's micro penis. So there's a good chance any hole in the plasterboard where your wiring is hanging out is already bigger than that fucking bracket, therefore having to widen it further to externally junction and enclose several cables leaves me wondering how I can ever mount a silly bastard as small as this, find enough structure to get my fixings into and cover up the damage without having to hire in some plasterer twat. Or this, Collingwood, you fucking cocksuckers, here making exterior wall lights that are going to be bolted onto unforgiving brickwork or render for which they provided crimp connections. Crimp connections, if you please! And so much internal wiring junk that the base of the luminaire struggles to physically contain even its own factory gubbins, let alone any external cabling I want to wang up it. While SLV, Collingwood and Dar are examples of bona fide lighting manufacturers, albeit ones who happen to give zero fucks for the scumbag installer, when it comes to no-name garbage from shonky web retailers, any hope I have of the job being straightforward is about as genuine as the fucking CE mark on the label. I mean, riddle me this, fat man. How can these fucking things be Class 2 if they come with an earth wire? Any manufacturer's belief that we workers battling on the front line cannot be allowed to think on our feet for the circumstances presented on any individual installation can suck the living lice from out of my ball hairs. It's ridiculous to expect installers to bend to the inflexible will of some product designer ponce who has never picked up a screwdriver in his life, except perhaps to involve it in some lubricated anal play. Ugh, I'm going to need a graphic for this. Pornhub will have something. Wait, what the fuck? That didn't happen earlier. No access to porn unless you tell big tech who you are and what sexual fetishes you're searching for. I just want a picture of a screwdriver up a man's arse, for Christ's sake. This fucking country. Fuck you, Keir Starmer, you goggle-eyed penis! So despite claims of UK-based design and whatever CE or UKCA tramp stamps happen to be tattooed on their tat, the likes of Dar are either reselling Chinese shite churned out to a global market where nobody in particular gives a flying fuck at the rolling donut of what's happening on our depressing island, or they're deliberately and genuinely designing lighting in this way for their own home market, despite knowing it so massively fails to interface with what wiring wends its way forth from out of everyone's walls and ceilings. Why? Why would they do this? Well, when you think about it, it's probably all quite deliberate, some might even say underhand. Not me though, for legal reasons. Manufacturer instructions supersede the generic advice of BS 7671, so by designing something inherently difficult for installers to work with, and knowing full well we'll be unlikely to slap up their CAC according to their design and instructions, means anything we do to get the fucker up and working in any way outside of a 0.75mm flex hanging out of the wall or ceiling to suit their connection enclosure shifts the liability for product safety directly from them and onto us. Anything from the basic hardware warranty to full legal accountability should something subsequently catch fire or someone be electrocuted. That's right, fools! Intentionally giving us something physically incompatible with the building wiring gets the manufacturer off the hook mere moments after the fucking thing has been pulled from the polystyrene in its box. Because Dar can legitimately say they provided a physical connection, direction to use that connection, and even a sticker saying that connection must not be slung into the skip, bounced into the bin, or lobbed into landfill, etc, etc. So any asshole installer who ignores all that, for whatever good and practicable reason, therefore accepts all risk and liability going forward. Sneaky fucks, don't you think? I know it sounds a bit tinfoil hat, and I'm certainly no conspiracy theorist, but that's the way this shit shakes down. If you're in the field making your own engineering decisions on connectivity, forced to though you likely are because the product you're presented with isn't fit for purpose out of the box for the commonest fuck site you're on, then in the event of a subsequent incident or accident, asshats at companies like Dar can say, hey, that sucker's been modified in a way we never approved of. You can't hold us accountable now that it's gone tits up, girlfriend.
Why the hell wasn't I told about this?
2 words, plausible deniability.
Yeah, that's how you and I are being played. To add insult to injury, Dar aren't geographically too distant from me. I could probably take my sweet fat ride down to their HQ, shit into a plant pot in their reception area, and still wheel spin out of town in time for coffee and croissants back in the cave by mid-morning. While they may put on a good front when it comes to their website and the bullshit umlaut in their name, you'll actually find them lurking in what can only be described as a diarrhea green shit-streaked hovel nestled on the edge of a Banbury industrial estate, metres from the fumes of the M40, which rather removes the vajazzle from their image. Dar are a full member of the Lighting Industry Association, which you'd think would mean they should fucking know better. I guess the LIA can't be too effective if their members are allowed to get away with a cunt trick such as this, so what, are they yet another organisation happy to collect fees in exchange for a logo without policing what the fuck's going on under their noses? Reminds me of some other organisations. And what the fuck is this? A member of ACID? Well, I'll admit it's a banger for those who were on the scene back in 1989, but I don't think that's where Dar were going with it. Apparently that's to prevent anyone copying their designs. Yeah, okay. I'm sure if the Chinese want to produce nasty lighting with shit wiring connections, they won't give much of a fat ass fuck about it. So that's Dar and their sneaky trick. Assuming it is such, because the only alternatives to it being a slopey shoulder stunt are either wholly inept design or complete ignorance of UK electrical wiring. I'm not sure which of those is worse, and sure, Dar aren't the only bad apples out there by any means. Brands such as Pookie and Astro also get alarm bells ringing. Indeed, most luminaires will have pathetic and impractical connections, but most are also Chinese shite made unapologetically for a world market with mixed standards, whereas Dar are banging on about their high-end and homegrown designs. I come across Dar commonly enough to know that as soon as I see their name on the fucking box, I'm in for a fight. Something I warn the customer about before continuing because it's going to cost them more than they perhaps expected. So that's Dar. Not the only offender out there, but certainly one that boils the head off my lagery piss. From the observation tower at the Maritime Museum here. It's been such a lovely sunny few days, and then when I get here it rains. Isn't that always the fucking way? Please do not use cameras or binoculars from these windows. Don't want to spoil the privacy of the residents down there. But yes, marvellous place, Falmouth. Shout out to Martin and Viv on Rousset. I don't know where that is. Is that in Cornwall? Or near Falmouth? Don't know. I'll have to look it up. There you go. Some ships or boats or whatever. A Virgin, Chris Unt South. Although not really, I know that's you biker Chris. Chris from down south, was it before? Sneaking in with a new Virgin contribution there. Once again, I'm dragging you heathens into some culture. Don't know why I bother. Pendennis Castle. It's a very round castle, isn't it? Zoom in on that. Excuse the screaming child. Joe Southgate is a whore. Yeah. Bringing out the big guns for Gadget Man 36, who is a blue super wanking whore. On the monthly periods, we start with Mr. Humbug. Fine view for you, Mr. Humbug. At least the rain stopped. Test gear Jonky. A sea view for you. Or a radio mast of some kind, there you go. That'll get your juices flowing. The man, the legend, that is Jay Sargent. Thank you again for your contribution. I'm going to give you a sort of harbour view with stately home. Let's zoom in on that. There's old Falmouth down there. There you go. Don't say I've never done anything for you, you assholes. So Jim Hook of Australia Shire. Hope it's all going well down there, Sir Jim, and that the burbs are being well fed. Fitzgerald lighting. Some moisture ingress going on in there. Jonathan Blankley, a new virgin on the monthly periods. Wow, welcome to the shit show, Jonathan, and thank you very much for joining in. Have a castle. Special mention to my man Dave, old Frizzy, for sending me some interesting gear, some old geezers gear. I do wish I could home more old geezers gear. I get quite a lot of people saying that they've got stuff they can send me, but no room to house it all. But you know, if you're thinking of throwing something into the skip, something old school and worthy, there must be people out there who want that for set dressing, for posterity, colleges out there who want to show off the old school stuff. I don't know, but cheers, Dave. Thank you for that. Much like to my collection of CAC. That's all from Falmouth. I'm out of here.